The sacred divorce, when endings become your most powerful beginning. I want to begin today by acknowledging the extraordinary woman whose wisdom has fundamentally altered how I understand human transformation. Jaleaa Lewis isn't just a thought leader, she is a revolutionary force dismantling generations of shame around life's endings. Through her groundbreaking work with Black professionals navigating major transitions, she has created nothing short of a liberation movement. Her framework for understanding divorce as sacred has pulled thousands from the depths of perceived failure into the light of profound self reclamation. What makes Jalea's impact so monumental is her refusal to accept the stories we've been told about endings and her courage to write new ones. Let me ask you something that might feel uncomfortable. What if everything you've been taught about divorce is a lie? Not just partially wrong, a complete soul crushing lie. What if divorce, this thing we whisper about, this experience we're conditioned to view as the ultimate failure, is actually one of the most profound catalysts for growth you'll ever encounter? What if endings aren't failures at all, but sacred gateways to liberation? This is the revolutionary truth that emerged from my conversation with Jaleaa Lewis. And it's a truth that shatters everything we think we know about success, healing, and excellence. We've been sold a dangerous myth. The myth says personal struggle and professional success exist in separate universes, that to excel in your career or business, you must compartmentalize your pain, hide your transitions, and never let them interfere with your work. This myth is particularly devastating for Black professionals and entrepreneurs who already navigate systems that weren't designed with their wholeness in mind. But what if this conventional wisdom is completely backward? What if healing isn't just a nice to have luxury, but the very foundation of sustainable success? Jaleaa Lewis emphasized something profound in our conversation. Divorce is not simply an end or a failure. It can be a conscious, sacred choice to break generational patterns and unlearn inherited trauma. For Black professionals, especially, this reframing transforms life transitions from sources of shame into opportunities for deep self awareness and spiritual evolution. Consider Letitia Clark's story. After witnessing talented Black women being dismissed from corporate jobs while their struggles remained unspoken due to stigma around vulnerability, Letitia founded the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast. She saw how Black women face devastating isolation after receiving those dreaded pink slips, losing not just their jobs, but their voices in predominantly white workplaces. Letitia's response? She created a storytelling platform where Black professionals could share authentic journeys of resilience, openly discussing setbacks like divorce or career loss without fear of judgment. The results were transformative. The podcast built community validation. Listeners found hope by seeing themselves reflected in others' stories. It fostered collective healing through truth telling. Letitia saw too many vibrant women leave corporate America feeling hollow because they had nowhere safe to process their experiences, a cycle she was determined to break. Today, Pink Parachute Diaries has become an influential space amplifying underrepresented voices across industries. It has inspired organizational leaders nationwide to prioritize psychological safety over silence and demonstrated how embracing personal failures can fuel professional triumphs. This brings me to the second revolutionary insight from Jaleaa Lewis. True transformation, personally and professionally, begins with intentional healing. Addressing our emotional wounds, family history, and internalized limitations allows us to show up as whole leaders in our businesses and communities. Embracing your story fully, including the messy parts, unlocks new pathways for authentic leadership. resilience, and sustainable success. We see this principle powerfully illustrated in Jacqueline Mitchell's Let's Get This Glow Up initiative. Jacqueline focused on intentional healing for Black professionals navigating systemic barriers at work. She recognized that generational conditioning led many high achievers to compartmentalize trauma while striving for excellence, a strategy that eventually caused burnout or disconnection from self. Mitchell challenged traditional narratives about success requiring sacrifice. Her program centered on mental and emotional wholeness as prerequisites for impactful leadership. The outcomes were revolutionary. Participants reported increased confidence in sharing their full stories at work, including divorces and family challenges. They built stronger networks rooted in authenticity, not just performance metrics, and experienced greater joy leading teams from a place of healed identity rather than survival mode. After years working with top tier talent who felt unseen despite accolades, Jacqueline recognized that deep transformation only happened when people addressed the root wounds, not just surface level skills gaps. Her movement sparked industry wide conversations about making well being integral, not optional, within professional development programs across Fortune 500 companies. She redefined what excellence means for Black leaders, inspiring them to model vulnerability as strength both inside organizations and out. This leads us to the third profound insight from Jaleaa Lewis. Your lived experience is your greatest asset. The journey through divorce or any major transition equips you with wisdom that cannot be taught in any classroom. By honoring your lived experience, including pain, you gain powerful tools for connection, empathy driven leadership, innovation, and ultimately inspire others by modeling what true growth looks like. Consider Tranine Davis, who revolutionized how organizations approach inclusion. Tranine didn't just focus on hiring more diverse talent, but radically reshaping cultures so all professionals could thrive authentically. She recognized that Black employees often encountered invisible systemic barriers, even after achieving representation, which stifled advancement if they didn't conform or suppress parts of themselves shaped by past traumas, divorce, or family dynamics. Davis championed holistic anti racism strategies, including support circles where staff could process personal transitions openly without fear. She advocated policies recognizing lived experience, including relationship changes, as valuable assets rather than liabilities. Organizations reported higher retention rates among Black staff who felt seen and heard holistically. Several companies adopted new frameworks prioritizing employee wellness during major life events such as divorce, separation, or recovery from burnout. What's particularly powerful about Trinine's story is that she began this work after nearly leaving her own high powered job due to lack of support following her own difficult breakup, a turning point that galvanized her advocacy. She helped design mentorship pipelines specifically tailored around whole person development, forging industry standards now emulated nationally. Her influence has shifted entire sectors toward valuing humanity above productivity alone, inspiring countless other Black leaders facing similar crossroads between career ambition and personal well being. Now, I want to challenge a fundamental assumption that permeates our culture. We've been taught that more options always equal more freedom, more choices mean more happiness. But what if that's not true? What if sometimes the most liberating choice is to let go, to end something that no longer serves you? This is the radical proposition at the heart of Jaleaa Lewis's work on sacred divorce. When we reframe divorce not as a failure, but as a conscious choice to honor our growth, and break generational patterns, we discover something extraordinary. We find that sometimes having fewer options, specifically removing the option to stay in situations that diminish us, actually creates more authentic freedom. Think about it. How many of us stay in relationships, jobs, or patterns that no longer serve us simply because we can, because the option exists, because leaving feels like failure? What if we flip this script entirely? The stories of Letitia, Jacqueline, and Trinine all point to a profound truth. When we honor endings as sacred, we create space for beginnings that would otherwise be impossible. When we embrace our full stories, including the chapters marked by pain and transition, we unlock leadership capacities that transcend conventional metrics of success. For Black professionals and entrepreneurs, especially, this reframing is revolutionary. In a world that often demands we fragment ourselves to fit into systems not designed for our wholeness, choosing to honor our complete journeys, including divorces and major transitions, becomes an act of radical self reclamation. So, I stand before you today with a challenge to completely reimagine what endings mean in your life. What if the relationships that didn't last forever weren't failures, but sacred teachers? What if your divorce wasn't your greatest shame, but your most profound initiation? What if the very transitions you've been taught to hide are actually your most valuable credentials? I challenge you to ask yourself, what inherited patterns am I ready to unlearn so I can step into my most liberated self? If today were the day I chose growth over guilt, what would change about how I lead myself or my business? The world doesn't need more professionals who've never stumbled. It needs leaders who've fallen, who've ended things that needed ending, who've divorced themselves from limiting patterns, and who've risen with a wisdom that can only be earned through living fully through transition. Your endings aren't your failures. They are your most sacred beginnings. Your transitions aren't your weaknesses. They are your greatest strengths. So stop hiding your divorce. Stop compartmentalizing your pain. Stop pretending your transitions haven't fundamentally changed you. Instead, let them fuel you, let them teach you, let them transform not just your life, but your leadership. Because when you finally embrace the sacred power of your endings, you don't just liberate yourself. You create permission for everyone around you to step into their most authentic wholeness too. And that is how we change everything.